Hi, welcome at your service in Caris. This is the 6 o'clock meeting for Saturday, the 28th of March, 2026. I'm going to talk by myself yet again. There may have been someone here earlier, but I'm running a few minutes late, so if anyone did come in, it's my fault. Okay, so I'm going to talk about what a Christian is and the world view of Christianity. I'm not going to be using scriptures here. I'm just going to be talking about primarily how Christians are viewed. Now, the basis of the majority of people see the religious people. They see the ceremony. They see Catholic priests and priests dressing up in golden robes and the like. And they see nothing more than religion and ceremony, ceremonious religion. It's all about doing A, B, C, D, exactly A, B, C, D, every single week, and nothing ever changes. And you come and you cross yourself and you walk to your seat and you sit down and they say we're going to sing this hymn and you stand up and you sing a hymn and you sit down again and they read a verse of the Bible and you stand up and sing a hymn, and a great deal of churches are like that. But is that Christianity, or is that just religion? And can religious people be Christian? And if that's the view of people in the world, that it is just another religion, people trying to work their way to heaven, then where should we stand? How should we stand as a person? Now, I'm not going to say as a Christian, because when you say Christian, that's what's in their mind immediately. They'll also have in their mind all the evangelistic type pastors that were TV ministers, etc., that fell through the 70s and 80s and whenever, even the 90s and recent decades as well. People have become quite famous and they've gone out and sinned in one way or another. Either they might have ruined the church financially, or they might have gone out and committed adultery, or so many different things. And people in the world, when you say you're a Christian, it's like, well, I'm going to tar you with that brush of the religious person or the person who says one thing and does another, total hypocrite. And therefore, the moment you say Christian, I go, well, not me personally, but the person in the world basically goes, oh, no, I don't want to know about your religious rubbish, your hypocritical religious rubbish. Okay, that's the view. We've got options. We accept the view and do nothing. That's a pretty poor option. We go out and try and convince people they're wrong. That's actually very hard to do. You can convince people who are ready to be convinced. If I give a message on whatever it might be, charis, doulos, Galatians, other scriptures, the process of salvation, whatever it might be, it doesn't matter. People that are crying out to learn more will change. They will grab onto that and think, now I understand God better. I need to move in this way. Where when you're talking to or about people in the world who are somewhat against the church because of all the hypocrisy they've seen and all the religion they've seen and the like, it is very difficult to change their opinion. So you are fighting against a brick wall. It's not worth the time and effort to do it. Next option is to change and be a godly person and ask people to look at yourself in the godly way that you're walking instead of looking at those fallen pastors or those religious people. Sure, it's a little bit better, but people tend to want to still hold on to the negative that they see and still use that as their argument. Another option would be to change the terminology and change it to godliness. You could say, instead of saying, I'm a Christian, you could say, I'm a person that seeks godliness. That's indeterminate. That's, in a sense, also denying God because you must then assume that they are going to take that as a person who does not promote themselves to God via religion and try and work their way to heaven, and a person who, if you say that, you're not declaring Christ as Lord. You're not declaring, now here comes the big point, Yeshua as Lord. I didn't say Jesus, I said Yeshua. Okay, sure. After all, we go all the way back in history and we find Jesus around about 500 to 800 years ago. Before that, the name didn't exist. There was no J in the, I'll say, British language. The J was invented somewhere between 500 and 800 years ago. It came into use, it was in use 500, 600 years ago. When Isus became Jesus, because it was spelt with an I before that, is can't be determined exactly. But there was no name Jesus 800 or more years ago. And it could be 900, but as far as I know, it's probably about 700 to 800 years ago. And I'm definitely safe on the short side by saying 5 to 800 years, and even if it's 900, so what? It's not even a millennium old. It was ISUS or IESUS, but before that, the spelling was different again. It was IES. I don't recall. Sorry, look, I don't recall. There was one or two letters that were different. It still started with an I. Um, it was something rather than like Isus. It was like Isusus, um, Isuus. It was Isuus, but I can't recall how to pronounce that. How to spell that. And it was Isuus because it had come from the name Yeshua, and it was Yeshua put into the Latin, which became Isuus, which then became Isus, which then became Jesus. Okay, I'm going to stick on a name for a while. Yeshua, you've heard it before, and you'll hear it from me again. I will refer to our Lord and Savior as Yeshua. Not always. Some of the time I'll say Jesus, and the reason being that's a commonly understood name. When I say Jesus, everybody knows who I'm talking about. It's like saying Santa Claus instead of saying Saint Nick, because Santa Claus, it was a changed name from the original person of Saint Nicholas. And the same thing happened. Yeshua became Jesus. St. Nicholas became Santa Claus. It's the way things work in this world. Things change. Not that the Bible has changed anything by his name. And the reason I can say that is you can go back and look at the Dead Sea Scrolls, and they were scrolls that were written at around his time, and they record the Bible almost identically as it is today. So therefore, we know that the basis of the Bible hadn't changed, just a couple of names and Greek words per the names, but the meaning of everything had not changed at all. And if his name was Yeshua, we should have some other evidence of that. Well, yes, we do. There is one person that was a historian that wrote about him during his lifetime and was a well-known, well-trusted historian who was Josephus from that region, and he wrote about Yeshua during the during his lifetime, around about 30 AD type thing. The Gospels and the rest of the Bible was written years later. Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, they never wrote a word in the Gospels while Jesus was walking on the earth. It was 20, 30 years later, in most cases, where the New Testament was written first. Written. So Yeshua is very reliable. We know that the most reliable Middle Eastern historian of the time spoke of Yeshua. being the person that made major waves happening in the Jewish world. I don't recall what Josephus wrote, but he wrote that this person was changing the Jewish world through what he said, what he did, whatever, I don't know. Yeshua. His name was Yeshua. So, back to Christianity. If you say, oh, I'm a Christian, some people, very few, may think well of you. A great number of people will think poorly. They will think you're religious. You're trying to work your way to heaven. You're uh, probably a two-faced person. You're probably a hypocrite, and you're following what is most likely a fairy tale. And they instantly don't want to know, don't care. You're not going to change their mind. What would happen if I said I'm a Yeshuan? I am a person standing upon the actual name of Christ, our Savior. Firstly, they wouldn't know what it meant. So I'm not instantly tarred with the brush of hypocrite, of religious person, of person trying to work their way to heaven. And as far as trying to work your way to heaven goes, can't do it. You can't do anything to get to heaven. And getting to heaven's another story again, because we don't go to heaven, we go to paradise. I've talked about that before. I'm not going to talk about that again right now. If you don't know what I'm talking about, watch my previous messages. Watch these messages in order, not the last one first. Go back and watch the first one and watch them all. There is just so much to learn. Now I can't keep going back. So I've decided I'm going to stop going back to repeat old messages. Now, if I declare I'm a Yeshua, I'm going to declare right now what that means and what I mean by that. I believe that Josephus was right. The name of the Christ was Yeshua. That Jesus came about as a name only through changes in history. And there's a lot of evidence for that. By calling myself a Yeshuan, they then have to ask, well, what is that? What's that mean? And I will explain that, well, I am a person that God has moved, and I have a relationship with God. It's a personal relationship where I don't hear an audible voice of God, where I don't um, have other sightings of God. I don't see angels or anything like that. It's not some overly spiritual thing. It's a relationship. It's like God is my father, but right now, God's in a different place. And if my natural father was in a different place, unless I've got a device to communicate with my natural father, then I can't communicate with my natural father. Same thing. God's in another place. I can't communicate directly, but I know God moves in me to let me know primarily what he wants, not necessarily with a highly specific idea in my mind, but I know the direction that God's leading me. And it's about relationship, not religion. I don't do certain things to get to heaven. I don't cross myself. I don't say the Lord's Prayer. I don't do X, Y, Z that you have to do it this way in the religious side of things. Doesn't exist. It's a relationship. And that relationship is different to what you would generally imagine. It's a relationship based firstly on faith. You must believe in God before you get evidence of God. That's easily found in the Bible. Ephesians 2:8. For by grace you are saved through faith, and that is not of yourselves, it is the gift of God. Okay, now I intend to more and more call myself a Yeshuan. And I'm saying this now, not that I'm going to say, oh, you can't use the name Jesus. You can't call yourself a Christian. All I'm saying here is I'm going to call myself a Yeshuan and hope that people don't make assumptions and hope that they ask me what I'm talking about and I get the opportunity to explain God to them in a new, unhindered way. I have no relationship to all those people in fallen ministries. I have no relationship to those people that go to churches where priests dress up in robes and do religious stuff. There are no actions that put you in a greater communication with God. There are no actions that get you to heaven. There are two sacraments, which are communion and baptism. And communion is sharing bread and wine in respect of the sacrifice that Jesus made as a memory that you do with fellow believers. Baptism is a sign that you have died to sin and risen to Christ. So under the water, death to sin, out of the water, a new life. Symbolically as well. And everything else, all the other concepts of religion are all irrelevant. Religion is irrelevant. To me, religion is man trying to work themselves to heaven or work to out of their own effort, achieve a more holy life, even if they don't believe in heaven, even if they believe in reincarnation or whatever it might be. That's religion. Man trying to achieve something beyond what he is or she. It's mankind. So I'm not saying man as any in a sexual sense. Where are you at? I ask that a lot. Are you ready to make a change in your life? You don't have to make the change that I'm making. You don't have to start calling yourself a Yeshuan. I'm just saying, hey, just get prepared to hear this from me on occasion because somebody sent me a message and they sent a message that the first sentence was, even Jesus wasn't a Christian. Well, a Christian is someone that follows Jesus. How can Jesus follow himself? It's impossible for him to be a Christian. It's like saying the Pope is the bishop that brings the sacraments to the Pope, that brings communion to the Pope. How can that be done? It can't. It's like me saying, I will lift myself off the ground. I'll grab myself by the waist and lift until I'm off the ground. Well, I can't do that. You can't follow yourself. How could Christ be a Christian? Anyone. And then they said something else about Christians. And it's like, yeah, well, I don't recall what it was. It wasn't important. The point being, I instantly thought, yes, people have a negative view of Christianity. We've got all those different options. Change it. Change what we do. Try and tell them that we're not what they think. Or stand up for God in another way. That's what I'm going to do. Now, because I now will be calling myself a Yeshua, doesn't make me not a Christian. I mean, a Jesuit is a Catholic priest. Being a Jesuit, does that make them not a Catholic? No. Being a Jesuit, does that make them not a Christian? No. It's just an order within Catholicism. So I'm going to consider Yeshuan as an order within Christianity. Okay? So if I say I'm a Yeshuan, please understand it's not a replacement of Christianity. It's just a statement that I'm coming from a different viewpoint. And my viewpoint is it's all about relationship with God rather than religion. And it's all about letting God deal with the sin in your life and you walking towards a godly life. That's what being a Yeshuan is. Not using that as an excuse to go out and sin and whatever else it might be, because then you're simply not. A Yeshurun is someone who earnestly seeks to glorify God and walk in the ways of Yeshua, which is walking away from sin and towards God and godliness. Okay, I guess that'll do. As always, rate the message. Give it a number out of 10. If you think it was great, post it on your own page for all your followers to see. Email it to people. Do whatever you like. Get the message out. If you thought it was pretty average message, well, go find your favorite message and get it out to people. If you need to learn more and grow in God, we can help you. Contact us and let us know. If you haven't found your call, contact us. We can help you find your call. If you've found your call but haven't trained, we can help you train. If you've trained but haven't launched, we can help you launch. I say this a lot too. Wherever you're at, we can help you advance if you contact us. There's not many people that have made any contact at this stage, so please start stepping up to the mark and standing up for God. Okay, bless you, govern well, encourage.